Good afternoon, and welcome to yet another edition of Global Franchise Leaders Forum. My name is Marya, and I'm the host for today. And it's my great pleasure to have Hesham Mourad from Qatar, Doha, and Ms. Layla Al-Dorani join us again from Qatar, leading entrepreneurs and franchise experts. And we also have Mr. Gaurav Marya, our chairman, Franchise India Group. Every week on Friday, we bring an expert in franchising business from some part of the world and share with you the opportunities which exist in the market, as well as how franchising globally is getting united and what kind of business opportunities and learning opportunities are there within the sector. So without much ado, I would now want to sort of bring in Gaurav for his opening remarks before we come to the guests.
Thank you, Sachin. And this is an initiative, both Franchise India and Fran Global is our global market entry company. We see at Franchise India a humongous amount of opportunity, where we see a lot of international brands would now look at India as a great market for entry. And also we see a lot of Indian brands now also ready to look at some of the immediate markets. And one market I can really start with this, which is very close to us. We have personally, I've personally done a lot of work in GCC, and then Gulf is the one market which I think is an extension to India. One for many reasons, because we have a large Indian diaspora there, and the relationship between Gulf and India has been historic, and our relationship, our habits, our cultures, our even everything what we do is very, very similar. So we thought that we should bring in experts from those markets and people who can really give us a little overview about what is happening generally in franchising and how we can really see an opportunity, especially between, and we were talking before we opened up this forum, particularly about Qatar, how Qatar has been a market which has demonstrated a great amount of value, particularly in the COVID side, because if you see the way where they manage and the way the economy has supported their people, it's a great example. It's a great market. I've been there multiple times and I've seen the kind of work has been done. And so today's session would be really about two fronts. One, we will continue to talk about the franchising, the best practices, and so on and so forth. But we'll also talk and pick up, especially because we have two learned guests on the panel. We'll talk about a little bit on what is happening in the Gulf and where we see opportunities between India and especially Qatar and opportunities from there coming to India and vice versa. So over to you, Sachin, to start with your the first few questions which you want to really take up with our panelists.
Sure, thank you, Gaurav. Qatar is like Gaurav has said, a significantly interesting market. One of the facts that we were chatting about is that it is the largest per capita GDP in the world, which makes it very exciting for a lot of brands. 50% of the brands are international brands from a consumption standpoint. So before I get down to sort of posing some questions and having this interactive session, I would like Hesham to sort of introduce himself and have his presentation around that.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Hesham Mourad. I've been in the franchising industry for the past 8 years. I am the associate for World Franchise Associates. And World Franchise Associates is one of the international companies that has been very active in the region and in the GCC market. We have done phenomenal work setting the franchise market out in Doha. We have done successful trainings with Qatar Development Bank. We have set up the first franchise show to ever take place in Qatar. We are an authorized advisory entity with Qatar Development Bank to scale up local brands like Layla, for example, and we'll talk about her and her wonderful journey as we move on. So we've been very active. We've been very active recently, since I would say 2018, on placing franchising as an industry and an ecosystem on private levels and also on semi-national and national levels. Now, I just wanted to introduce the Qatari market to everybody. Qatar is, from a franchising perspective, I think Qatar is really misunderstood as a market because Qatar poses so much potential. And people in the franchising industry being always about network development, they look at it and they say this might be a geographically small market. And I think that's really a misrepresentation of what this market can be. I've seen personally growing up in Qatar, brands that have exceeded, I would say anything 40 outlets, 40, 45 outlets, and they were local concepts, by the way. They were local brand concepts. They were not international franchises. So Qatar is definitely not a 5-outlet development plan as everybody sees it. And if I just can get the audience for 10, 12 minutes, I'll try not to bore them with a small presentation. But I think it's important for people to understand the true potential of Qatar as a market and as an industry as well. Can everybody see the slides?
Yeah, you can, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Sorry, I don't know what is the issue. There we go. All right, so just as a quick introduction about Qatar, Qatar is almost 11,500 square kilometers. However, at the moment, the current population stands at 3 million. 3 million individuals living in Qatar. I would say the local population stands anything between 300,000, 350,000. And the rest, of course, is an expat population. Qatar has a nominal GDP of well over 180 billion US dollars. And this all comes, of course, from the oil and gas and hydrocarbon industries that Qatar is dominant with. Qatar is considered to be one of the largest producers of LNG globally, and Qatar has also worked on cementing that position. The government is very active when it comes to the LNG industry. As everybody knows, Qatar is to host the World Cup, the first World Cup to ever come to the Middle East in 2022. So we're 2 years away. Most of the projects related to the World Cup are complete, are in testing and commissioning, and Qatar has a very ambitious plan to become one of the major sports hubs in the region. So they've announced also their willingness to host the 2032 Olympics, and we have the 2020 CAF, which is the African Football Federation tournament happening next year also. So Qatar is really positioning itself as one of the major sports hubs in the region. Tourism is a growing industry for Qatar, and the government has really strong national plans for this. They've done a campaign, an international campaign called "Courted for Qatar." Qatar is courted for everyone, and they're pushing the message throughout several countries. Qatar now is considered to be one of the most open countries in the world. They have an 80 nationalities visa waiver program. So there's a lot of nationalities now that can access the country on a touristic level, even on a business level. And Qatar has also been ranked as one of the 100 city destinations in the Al-Dorani report for 2016, 2017. So Qatar is really pushing the tourism and the touristic market. We've also seen almost 2 million visitors come in last year alone. So that's like 60% of Qatar's current population. And this year, prior to COVID-19, we've reported also a 20% rise in the number of arrivals. So the country is growing, basically. This is the message. It's one of the most family-oriented and safest destinations worldwide. There are 94 nationalities currently residing in Qatar. We have all the major hotel chains available at the moment, and Qatar is pressing to have 80,000 keys ready for the World Cup by the next 2 years. And as a market, just so people understand the magnitude of Qatar, it's 7% of the GCC food sector and 6% of retail. Now, people might frown on these numbers as percentages. However, in terms of magnitude, that's $1.6 billion and $27 billion. So Qatar really is a significant market. As we move on to the trade relationship, between India and Qatar. The diplomatic relationship started in 1973. The trade between India and Qatar has grown from $8.53 billion to $12.112 billion in 2 years. Again, India's exports has grown over 100% in the past 2 years to Qatar. The Indian population in Qatar is estimated at 700,000 individuals. So out of 2.9, that's a very significant amount. There are currently 9 Indian schools in Qatar and 2 cultural centers. Prior to the GCC blockade, Qatar was flying 28 flights on a weekly basis to India. There are still flights available to all the major airports. And the Indian nationality is one of the nationalities that's eligible for a visa on arrival in Hamad International Airport. There are significant amounts of Indian businessmen and Indian companies currently successfully operating in Qatar. So what is franchising like in Qatar? I think this is the question we come to ask. Qatar has currently connected all of its major retail outlets to the metro, which is now up and running. And this, I think, is a huge step because now the shopping spaces are more accessible than ever. Supply chain has developed humongously in the past 4 years, and I think the country has achieved self-sufficiency in certain amounts of areas where they were depending on neighboring countries. The telecommunication industry in Qatar allows all the technological solutions to be available, as Qatar is one of the few countries that currently operates a 5G network. We have a vast majority of mainstream franchise brands successfully operating in Qatar. Qatar has ranked as the 3rd in the GCC region in terms of international franchise attractiveness and 71st out of 132 countries in the index. So Qatar now is considered to be the 3rd most attractive market in the GCC when it comes to franchising and the franchising industry. What franchises do we have or are we looking for in the Qatari market at the moment? I think this is an important question because even though we have several key mainstream brands, we are still missing on vehicle-based franchises. We still don't have those in Qatar, unfortunately, and I think this is a wonderful segment of the industry that's really tapped out on. We're also looking for franchises that are targeting mid-segment customer bases because the majority of the shopping experience in Qatar has been based on luxury segment. And I think that is really shifting now. So there's still a big gap for mid-segment customer based targeting brands. And there's also a big segment for scalable brands. Scalable brands also are something that are well thought out in Qatar at the moment. And there's also a big gap in terms of service-oriented brands. So I think those are the key segments for franchises looking to come into Qatar. And I think there's a wonderful opportunity for all of them. Now, like any market in the world, Qatar does pose some challenges. And I think they're viable ones for people to know about before they come in. Supply chain at the moment, even though the country has worked humongously in the past 4 years to become self-sufficient in certain areas, there is still a gap when it comes to the supply chain. And I think Layla, once we start to talk to her, she can vouch for that. There were a lot of things that were coming from neighboring markets, and once the blockade took place, we felt an impact at some point. The supply chain has improved in Qatar tremendously. I would say that once more. However, it's still some aspects of it is still challenging. Operational expenses is one of also the challenges that you will face in Qatar. I think it's always best to compare Qatar to Singapore when it comes to the operational expenses. It's an expensive place to operate in some areas, especially when it comes to the rent. So this is something to take into consideration. Rent will be a big chunk out of any P&L when operating in Qatar. And then there's the exchange of qualified talent. Unfortunately, there is not many people in the industry at the moment. The franchising industry is still growing in Qatar. It might not be as mature as other markets that are neighboring to us. So to find qualified talent, that's usually an issue. And I think it's always best for people coming in to have their own management team as part of the kickoff of the operation, because it really helps in the transfer of knowledge. The franchise ecosystem in itself is still new. There's no clear franchising law in Qatar at the moment. Franchising projects are treated as if they are normal commercial projects, so this can be a bit of an issue. And then finally, trademark registration and IP protection. Again, because like I said, there's no clear franchising law in Qatar. Sometimes registering the trademark and protecting your IP can be a challenge. It has developed a lot. I can assure you people of that, but some parts of it remain still to be progressed. And so basically, those I would say the 5 key areas that you have to think of when coming into the Qatari market. And that wraps my presentation. And I'm sorry if I took a bit too long, but I would like to introduce also my colleague Layla Al-Dorani. Layla is a Qatari entrepreneur who has a vegan brand, which is a very interesting concept. And Layla has been supporting her brand and growing her brand for 10 years. It's one of the prominent brands in Doha. And I would like Layla to share with us some of her experience. How did she start off? What it took for her to build her business? How quickly has she developed? What challenges has she faced? And where does she see the future for her brand? Because I personally believe that Layla's brand is a very good model for a brand that's scalable and is ready for franchising as a local Qatari brand. So I'll pass this over to Layla now.
Thank you, Hesham, very much. And thank you all for having me here today. It's really exciting to be here on this forum and panel and be able to speak with you about Qatar and the market and franchising opportunity. So I did start the brand over 10 years ago. It was a cold pressed juice concept. When it is a challenge when you try to introduce new types of technologies that's not available in the market. Partly it's about education to the ministry and government about that because of the type of licenses that you might need that's not typically available, that maybe they need to form or adapt. And then educating the market on the new products, especially if they're not custom as part of their everyday lifestyle and culture. We were one of the first companies to start bring the cold press juice technology and start selling green juice. Now it's very widely known internationally. It was an opportunity that I saw over 10 years ago that hasn't hit Qatar, and we took advantage of it. And we were able to bring a lot of the healthy products, plant-based products to the market. We started first with getting a small space outside of Doha because, as Hesham said, the rent is very expensive. So it depends exactly how you want to start. And at that time, I didn't come with a lot of financial backing or investment. We started it from scratch. It's a multi-award winning company. So every award that we won, we reinvested those winnings back into the company to buy equipment and machine. So when we started, we were in a place called Barwa, which is a little bit outside of Qatar. It was a small facility. We tested the market, we started selling, and then the demand kept on growing. We grew our space. We moved about 3 times, and then the last space we just moved into now is with Qatar Development Bank, which is a government-owned facility for food and beverage manufacturing. And as the first woman who actually got awarded that space because they only have 15 units. And so now we're able to scale up our production. Through our main factory facility, we opened a few outlets of a smoothie bar and a grab and go food items associated with gyms. And then there again, with the relationship and rent, we start looking at different models that we could work together. And then we're also looking to launch our vegan fast food, junk food brand soon and by this month. So we're really excited. There's a lot of opportunities here in Qatar. I think it's definitely a growing market. You can see already the growth of our population in just a few years. When I first arrived was less than 2 million, and now we're closing almost to 3. And really, you have a lot of government support, especially with starting a business, whether it's a franchise or your own concept. Even during this COVID time, we've had a lot of support from the government. You know, His Royal Highness the Emir has put in $75 billion in a loan 75 billion riyals alone in just supporting the businesses with rent and salaries and stuff to just help ease the burden during this difficult time. So, so if you have any great ideas that the local market and especially the expats that they would like to have, I think this is a good time to enter it. Not only are we looking into football, but Qatar is also looking to host the first Olympics in 2032, and they're applying for that bid. So there is great opportunity and chances. Any other questions?
Thank you. I think we can see your passion for what you built, and congratulations for you, because I have not seen so many, women being very entrepreneurial and leading that. So all congratulations to you, what you've done, and continue to build and encourage a lot of other women entrepreneurs who also start doing it, and this is where I think the next world would happen, because if you take build businesses and create further employment, and that's how the economies become much more stable and become much more effective. So great presentation from both of you. So we'll start with few questions, and I think let's Sachin, over to you for picking up some questions for Hesham, and then we can go to Layla and ask her a little more on the business side.
Sure. Like Gaurav said, excellent presentation, Hesham. I just wanted on the demand side, what are the, you very clearly mentioned what are the demand, franchise demand opportunities. And, but one of the challenges that everybody, understands when entering into GCC market is the protection of the business as well as IP. So you want to dig deeper on that one.
So there is something I'd like to add about that. There was a 2014 cybersecurity law that was passed, and especially protecting any of the IP rights. You get, if anybody is infringing on those rights, you get up to 3 years jail or 50,000 riyals fine. And then the breach in IP includes copyrights, patents, trade secrets, trademarks, trade names, geographical indications, industrial design, and so on. So they are really, there is a committee, there is a cybersecurity department that you could raise your complaints to. They are very serious about these cases. And when we applied for our branding, basically what copyright, what happens is that you send the application, they just check to see if there's no conflict, and then once you apply, they actually open it for a few months to see if there's any other dispute around that, and then you're granted your copyright, and it's for Qatar or internationally, depending on what you're looking for.
So Layla has answered phenomenally.
Sorry, I just don't.
He's actually summarized a lot of what I was about to say. Qatar, like we said, Qatar as a franchising market is evolving, right? And I think more and more as we press into the time, people are trying to understand the aspects of this industry. The laws are changing, definitely. Usually franchises, I would say for people coming inbound, I would say it's best also to apply to have your trademark registered in the GCC before you come, because that really expedites the process here in Qatar. But as Layla said, the government is really looking into it now more than before. People are not getting it away with it as easily as it was. And I think as we progress and the industry grows into Qatar, the laws will become definitely much more stricter, and the investors will have their rights protected. Because at the end, everybody understands franchising is a GDP driver and a job creator. So as the GCC markets themselves start to shift away from government spending and really emphasize the SME sectors and the private sectors, they're really looking to ring fence those investments one way or the other. So at least if you're going to show up, you will not have such petty difficulties really manifest themselves upon your operations.
You've worked extensively in the market, and especially in early days when Dubai was setting up its opening doors. So your experiences and your suggestions to companies seeking entry in GCC market.
Sure. So we've done a lot of work in GCC, and I call it there are 3 cycles of partnerships we've seen in GCC. I mean, if you look at the 90s, only the topmost brands came in and they chose the biggest of the groups and created partnerships with them, and this would be very similar to what happened to the most of the world. So you will have a McDonald's going with the biggest group and Burger King with another big group, and so on and so forth. So that's how the life cycle really evolved. And then we saw a very different wave which started in the early 2000, where I found that a lot of locals who made a lot of wealth from various structures, and they became like a trophy collectors. So they would go to shopping in London and see some brand on the street and say, I would take a franchise. And I've seen a lot of brands which entered GCC which would open up 2 shops, 1 shop, never grow the business, and so on and so forth. And we also saw this was almost everything was looking like coming from the world and opening up these 1 or 2, 3 shops, and they would put up a big dollar in the month. Rather, I feel that sometimes for good or a bad reason, they disturb the entire ecosystem. When you used to go to American companies and talk about a franchise fees to enter in a market, they would say, oh, I have sold, say, Qatar for $1 million upfront. Why should I sell India for less than that? India is a much bigger population and much bigger structure. So I used to laugh myself that somebody would put up $1 million to buy a franchise to address such a small market in relative terms. End of the day, the population makes a big difference. But this has now changed. This is not changed, and I've seen a new emergence of realistic, very good entrepreneurs, very effective entrepreneurs. They're good operators also. They have started coming in. And another thing which I am now very excited about, the Gulf market and even Qatar and Dubai and other places also, that there are a lot of entrepreneurs like Layla, as she's done. They are creating their homegrown brands. A lot of homegrown brands which were always missing. And I remember in 2007-8, I used to do a lot of seminars, and I worked closely with Dubai SME and players like that to encourage. Why would you always buy a brand from outside? Why would you not create? Because you created world's best cities. You created the world's best infrastructure. What stops you not to create world's best brands here? Why you always look at West to buy a brand from entirely? Why we don't have the best coffee shops which are done from here? But why we don't have the best of the restaurants coming from here? And that is a mission which we worked hard, and I can tell you right now that there is a lot of work going on people who becoming and creating their own brands, and some of the brands are world ready, and they can rather now start exporting brands out of this. This is one big change, and I should compliment. And I think this is also because of the active mindset change of largely the administration and the families which were running and leading these countries. They've also changed. They understand the importance of entrepreneurship now. They understand that in long term, the sovereign wealth would not be able to do much, because they need to really encourage entrepreneurship, and franchising is a great way to encourage entrepreneurship. So Hesham, you are seeing change now in the way people are buying, who are buying from who are the buyers now these days for franchising. Are you seeing in that?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I think what you have just said is really valid. Before, I think people were not as cautious as they were with their investments, and I do believe that unfortunately, maybe because of the abundance of money in the GCC markets a few years ago, there's no really correct way to say it, but I think things might have been overspent. It's quite nice to see that now people are revising their costings and looking into a more sustainable model. Investment now, I would say, in the GCC region has become much more smarter, much more realistic. And I think even now to buy a franchise or to sell a franchise into the region, you really have to have a valid offering and something that's a sustainable model that will last for years, in order that, because I'm sure everybody knows franchising is a business where your returns are not immediate. It takes you a bit of time before you can get your investments back. And if your model is not really sustainable and has something solid to offer, and really the potential to scale up and grow, then usually, unfortunately, and sadly to say, most of these stories are not success stories. And we've seen mega brands come into the GCC market and for some reason or the other, they flop. And then you see a brand that might not be as internationally powerful. However, they've had phenomenal success stories in certain GCC markets. So investment really has become smarter and selective. This is the word I would say now for the market in the GCC. Selection is a big part of the process now, and you really have to have a good offering to show up.
Absolutely, and I should compliment also your firm. World Franchise Associates has done a very, very credible work. I have seen a lot of players who come there as a consultants and always not really committed to a region. I think World Franchise Associates have been very committed to the region. You've been working in the region for many years, and all of you are, I think, a good friend. But they've been very credibly working in the market, and so all compliments to you, the kind of work you're doing. And
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very kind of you.
On the government front, what kind of grants you've seen over the time for SMB promotion in the market, Layla or Hesham, either of you could answer. And
I'll let
for expats when they make investments. Yeah.
All right. Did you say grants?
That's right. Yeah.
Any kind of government support, because, and both ways, because I think there is a big program which Qatar government runs also to encourage if you build your own brand, and especially for encouraging people to start their entrepreneurship. What kind of support the government gives you?
That's a good question. I haven't. So right now, what the government has done to encourage people to start new businesses, they've introduced, when it comes to registering the company, something called like a one-stop shop to get all the information that you need as far as your company registration, your computer card, and all of these legal documents. Before, it was very difficult. You've had to go into so many ministries to try to get that to form your company. So now they've really tried to consolidate that. They make sure that it's easier access, as well as creating matrash. That's also new, just a few years ago, being able to register online your companies, your brand, the brand name and everything. So they've becoming more digitalized in that process. So that is what has started making it easier for people to start the company, even if you don't. And then they also removed that requirement of a minimal fee. Before, you used to have to over 200,000 just to have in the bank to start. Now they're a lot more flexible. You don't need that amount of cash at hand, on hand. And as well as if people have home businesses, they've made it legal now. So before it wasn't the case. You're able to start your understanding your customer base, understanding whether your product demand, and without having that huge investment to rent a space or a shop yet. So these kind of little changes that the governments have made have created a huge impact on the entrepreneurship circle and what's available. It wasn't like that when I started. I've seen those changes happen gradually over the last 10 years. And I think it's a lot easier to start a business today than it was back then.
And I would also just like to add something to what Layla said. The government supporting the industry of franchising in particular, Qatar Development Bank has set up a franchise development program, which is phenomenal, really. They subsidize 50% of the cost of an FDP if you are a scalable and franchise-ready program. So this is also one of the wonderful government initiatives to grow the industry in Qatar. 50% subsidy, and the subsidy is significant, really. It's money supported by the government where franchising brands or local brands who want to become franchises don't even have to return. So this is, again, something that I think is phenomenal in this market. And I would say I wish more people would actually exploit that, because this is something that's very difficult to find, especially now past COVID-19. But it still remains, and it's still strong, and hopefully we see more local brands like Layla ready to invest in their brands and grow.
Absolutely. I think there should be a mix of both a lot of homegrown brands should be encouraged to really scale up and go global. You know, if there are, you want to really come to India, India can be one of the largest vegan markets in the world, and we also becoming very conscious, like you now see in GCC, people becoming very health conscious. India is also at the major cities of India. You see the Mumbai and Pune and Bangalore and Chennai and places of that nature, even Hyderabad, they're becoming very, very conscious. So you should look at franchising rather than looking at Europe to franchise. You should look at India to franchise, and there's a huge market for your opportunity in this market.
Yes, I completely agree. India is a wonderful market. I'm very familiar with it, and it would be amazing to grow some of, at least now, the more hipper vegan style type of ideas there, because it's you have a huge population, and the younger generation are very excited about this type of industry.
Yeah, so we have to just take out dairy out of our meals, because we anyway were vegetarian. Large part of people are vegetarian. Now
True.
if they take dairy out of their habits, then they become vegan. So it's not that difficult for Indians to do, rather than for a lot of other countries it's very difficult, because you have many layers to really pass. But in India, you just have to leave the dairy, and then you're done.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's about accessibility and what kind of products do you bring to the market. I'm sure if we brought non-dairy products there, and the people will love it and would love to try something new.
And I think the supply chain in India is.
And plant-based protein is the next big opportunity.
Right.
I can tell you, it's one of the things which is happening so fast than you cannot imagine. We had a very strong interaction with the boss of Unilever. They're investing most of their investments now in a plant-based protein, because that's the way they think that people would consume, and this is a very fast change. So you are the right time, right place, and I think the entire region is a great opportunity for you to really expand.
That's
And
great.
we also see many brands within India, which I think can be very promising to enter Qatar. At this stage, I think there is a lot of opportunities, and earlier people were only thinking because we have I would say, over marketing of Dubai in some sense in India. So everybody thinks Dubai most of the time when they look at abroad, going from India to outside. But I think that's why we started to bring you on our webinar to introduce the entire market, so that people understand that there is a much bigger and much richer market available out there, and much more stable market also.
Yes.
In a lot of sense, which is available, where people can venture out and open franchises.
I think you've hit it on the nail when you said stable. Qatar is a stable market, is a very safe market, safe for families, and I think it has a very long-term plan and future that you can really invest and put your money here.
Yeah, and I would like to add to what Layla has said, because the government has recently spent money on expanding the ports, growing the airlines, and at the same time also Qatar is setting up their own free zones at the moment. This is something also exciting we're looking at into the future. So I don't want to say they're mimicking Dubai. I think that Dubai is a wonderful market, but there's a lot of lessons that we learned, and I definitely see that Qatar has kind of foresaw that, and they're working around it. So this is definitely a stable, like Layla said, a stable market, a growing market, and an exciting market to be, because the amount and potential of growth in this market is unprecedented, especially in the franchising industry. The industry is relatively new because of the fact that it was always in the hands of the neighboring markets. Most of the franchises we see, the master franchisee was sitting somewhere else other than Doha. And it was just a market or a terrain of expansion for them, and they took it from there. Now there's a lot of potential for local grown brands like Layla to show up, buff up, and be there, especially the ones worth it, and who are actually, they know what they're doing. A lot of people like to play entrepreneur, but to be one, it's completely a different story. And at the same time, also for franchises coming in, there's definitely a lot of competition. Sorry, there's definitely not a lot of competition in this market. This market is welcoming and open, and will only continue to grow, especially in the next 3 to 4 years. I mean, I would always say to people, if you want to come into Qatar from 2020 to 2024, 2025 is definitely the time to be. Because Also, there's always the fact that once you've come and you're an early comer, you've become an authority on what you do. So this is really the right time to bring your foot into the market. The market is welcoming, the market's open, and there is demand. And this is also something that is significant when it comes to our industry, because yes, it's nice to be somewhere where it's well thought out. The media puts focus on certain markets, but at the end, penetration and market saturation remains to be an issue for a franchise who's going to invest, or a franchisee who's going to invest in a brand. It's easy to be spotted out in Doha. It's easy to be known in Qatar, and this is still a market that really depends on word of mouth more than anything. So if you have a quality product, you will definitely have a loyal customer base, and I think this is something that people should consider when evaluating this market. There is potential to grow. There's spending parity, and there's demand.
Absolutely. There's a huge demand, and Franchise India and Fran Global collectively works with about 4,000 plus brands. Out of that, about 80% are homegrown domestic brands, and we work with some global brands which we represent and grow the region. Franchise India also has master rights for many brands which we develop for the region. For example, there is a company called Action Coach, which is the world's #1 action coaching company. So we run India and entire GCC. So we will also reach out to your office for a lot of our brands which are very, very keen on that market, where we can collaborate and really develop those brands in that market, especially brands which I feel would be very relevant at this moment. Because we also at India, we have just transformed our portfolio, and we feel that, and now, especially post-COVID, there are a lot of brands which would make a lot of sense, and some would not make sense if they're not able to innovate and do that. So anything you seeing in the way franchising has evolved post-COVID, what kind of trends you see now would become bigger? I mean, health is big trend, which Layla has talked about. It's absolutely, McKinsey says it's one of the top 5 changes in human life, which is health. People have to become more health conscious, and they would like to honest food. I mean that they know what is they and why they're eating this. So that's a big change. Any other changes you see in the franchise industry which is coming through?
Children education is definitely one. I think that's also a phenomenally growing industry. Fitness, like you touched on, is definitely a market leader now in a lot of things, and we've successfully placed several fitness brands throughout in the past few months.
There's like delivery platforms, anything accessible through your phone, technology. There's other platforms, online sales. So a lot of stores or malls that had to go online to be able to sell their clothes and other items. You're seeing a lot of these kind of new innovative ideas that have come because of COVID and the situation that we're in.
Absolutely, and I think that's right. Hyper local, capabilities, hyper local both for product and
for the Qatar market in particular. For the Qatar market in particular, I think entertainment brands also are still very well thought out. This is also, I think, a growing segment now, as like Layla says, that the characteristics of buyers in Qatar is changing. They're becoming much more younger, much more savvy, much more hip. But the issue remains that Qatar and the local population is a very exposed population, very well traveled. So they also have become very selective. But at the end, I still see that there's definitely a big entertainment segment that can be tapped into.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. And the service segment in particular also remains to be untouched. I don't want to name names, but I've seen brands that are doing phenomenally well out of kiosks here in Doha just because they're offering franchising brands, just because they're offering a service. So service brands also are really thought out. And as more of the local community starts to invest in their sideline projects, and I don't want to say shy away from government jobs, but even it's a national direction now to encourage the Qatari youth to have their own private business, and Layla might be a very good example of that. So those brands and those segments really need to be targeted if you want to enter into the Qatari market. I'm sorry, back to you, Layla.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. I think this is such a family-oriented type of community, and anything to do with entertainment, family, education, they're really looking into those kind of opportunities to have in Qatar, and especially the different brands that you could bring in, and pre-COVID and hopefully now post-COVID after September, when the last phase opens up, we're going to see there's a lot of entertainment in the malls, plays, and just different things that you can do to bring families together. I think that's a big key that that could be focused on.
Sure, and we work with a lot of emerging trends, and we're working on emerging trends in healthcare. A lot of we just launched a e-clinic, which is a completely technology-led clinics where you don't need to have a physical doctor in there, because now you can do consultations on platform with people in the world. I mean, like I know a lot of people from Qatar go to Europe, especially Germany, and for basic checks and a lot of other things because healthcare in Germany is one of the best in the world. So now you can have the same doctors ready attending you through technology. There's a lot of healthcare work going on. Similarly, edutech, we are doing a lot of work in education through technology within homes, both coaching, development, STEM education. We just launched a beautiful brand out of US, which we're taking to the world, called iCode. It's a coding brand for kids.
Wow.
Now it's part of curriculum. It's now a curriculum that post sixth standard kids should take up coding. So brands like that. So we're doing a lot of work on that space. So these are businesses which I think would emerge and would become interesting for the market. And similarly, I think a lot of brands I know which are there in Qatar, which also look at market as big as India. While it's not a rich country, so to say, but we call it a many countries in one country. Sometimes you would see that there are more millionaires in India than the entire population of Australia. So that's also one fact. But it also has its own challenges, and being a large country. But if there is somebody who sees a mass expansion, and you think about doing 1,000 outlets in I think then India becomes really the market, right?
And there are grants for technology, by the way. We have also the Qatar Science and Technology Park, and so they are offering grants, especially like you said, anything technology related, and those platforms. So really, you should look into the different opportunities that Qatar has and what you can leverage on and work with your local partner on that. So it's not really just exclusively for locals. I think there is opportunities for expats to work with locals on getting that access.
And fintech also has become very popular in the past few months, and digital transformation, because of course, like we said, Qatar has really put COVID-19 into like what I call a showcase. They're focusing on what lessons learned, and they're moving quickly to weather the storm. So digital transformation also and fintech brands are more than welcome in Qatar.
And as going back to what you said about virtual and telemedicine, I think that's Qatar has already experienced that we've had to migrate some of our appointments to virtual, especially like with Sidra Hospital. So since the market have got, especially the locals have gotten used to it a little bit, they've had to have their appointments with the doctors this summer. I think it's not too far away to make this into an opportunity for people to have this access post-COVID and future on.
Absolutely. I think that's where healthcare and education would certainly become very clearly technology driven, and a lot of work could be done. A lot of other opportunities, direct to home opportunities, which would be there in terms of, we're doing a lot of work on the sanitization, cleaning services. We have world's largest carpet cleaning company, which is also working on. So a lot of these services, there's a brand which we're doing, which does only your disinfection of your air cons, because every home, especially in Gulf, is central air conditioning, which gets dust, and you're not having ability to clean that. So of that nature, I think do extremely well. And as Hesham said, that people are using and consuming services a lot now in their in their homes, and these kind of franchise opportunities, not only I think one part of the world, but I think there's an emergence of service businesses. Uh, 2 decades were only selling food franchises and fitness franchises and so on. So we need to really evolve ourselves in franchising and see how the consumption is changing. So franchise models would also change similarly. As the people would start consuming differently, there would be a different models coming in. So over to you, Sachin, for few of your questions, because he goes in order of asking questions. I go anywhere. So
No, well, thanks, Gaurav. We've got a couple of questions coming, but one of them really wants a $3 million for a patent loan. So he's saying that, do you offer loans against patent? This is Mr. Rao asking this question. So any one of you want to sort of make some commitments there? I mean, government offers some loan schemes, or like you were saying, startups getting some funding against some proprietary technology or some patents.
That is available through Qatar Development Bank. I'm talking about Qatar, of course. That's available through Qatar Development Bank, but under certain segments, or like for example, fintech. Yes, there is seed money. If you're part of the fintech incubator, there's a sports technology incubator also, and yes, there is seed money if you're part of that incubator. There's a couple of good incubators going on. I would recommend that they Google Qatar Business Incubation Center. There's a website there that has all the information. Really, I don't think we're the right bunch to answer that question, but I will pass on funding if this is the question. But yes, there is a possibility if you are incubated to get seed money. How much and on what basis, I really don't know.
I will get in touch with your office and probably get some references of the agencies which somebody can get in touch with and seek more information. So that'd be helpful.
Sure, I would be delighted to help.
Similarly, some questions coming in from Layla's talk. Somebody wants to know what are the agencies that you mentioned in your talk, which can help them in setting up the business in Qatar, and if Hesham's office can also help in setting businesses in Qatar. Layla, first you.
Yeah, so for setting up a business, I think one of the best ones that I've seen is with Fusion Group. I put the link onto the chat, the Q&A. At least it's the one-stop shop where you can get all of your PRO services, your sponsor signing, and a lot of other benefits that they can offer. They've done that before with other companies. That's just from my experience. Matrash is just an online app that you work with applying for your government request. And once you get access to your staff will be managed through that, as well as and then other opportunities, like he said, the Qatar Development Bank. You have Cubic, which is the business incubator, and not only will you have to go through a program with them. It's not that long, and if you win, you'll get awarded either seed funding money, or you could be awarded a workshop, even an office space that's free rent. So you don't have to have your own office space just to start. So there's a few organizations that can support you.
They can always get in touch with ECMA's consulting, so you can.
We'd be delighted to point people in the right direction. I personally have over 20 years of Qatar market experience, so we have a fair share of knowledge. Let's just put it this way. Opportunities are open. Qatar is open, like I said, and welcoming. Especially for technology brands and digital transformation brands at the moment. They are very well thought out, and this is a market where you can become global. There's no doubt there.
Sure. That's all from my side, Gaurav. We'll take the closing remarks from all the panelists. It's been a great chat so far. So I'll go first with you, Gaurav.
Sure. Thank you very much for a lovely insight on the market of Qatar, and also tell us your business and Hesham, you have a great experience in franchising, a lot of work you've done. So it was insight from you. And we see a good synergy between Franchise India and your firm to closely work and see how we can improve our trade between both countries and also contribute onto that. I also feel that more we create these discussions and bring more opportunities to each other's market, then I think there will be a possibility to do bigger trade. And so thank you very much for both of you. So before we do, I mean, I think any remarks, starting with you, Layla, you start with your remarks on and give a message on what a woman entrepreneur should do. Especially, I think your message should go to not only India. India also has the same problem. A lot of times women don't take initiatives or coming out and running businesses, and Gulf also I found the same. And they are much smarter to do business, that I can tell you, than a lot of men would be. So over to you for your remark, and then to Hesham. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for having me here today. You know, it's our Eid today, so it is a national holiday, and I'm working. So the only message I have to say to people is that as an entrepreneur, regardless of what day it is, even if it's a holiday, you're still working, and you have to. And if you're willing to make that kind of commitment and sacrifice, I think it's worth it. But it is a commitment and it is a sacrifice. So, but you know, it really is important. And if you're passionate about what you believe in and you really think that you can be helping people, I think it's a worthy cause. And it was great hearing all about, you know, the Indian market and all of these franchising opportunities that you have mentioned, Gaurav. And thank you, Hesham and Sachin, for bringing me here today in this forum and speaking to you and sharing with you about my experiences.
Thank you.
And Qatar is a great place, so I look forward to seeing you all here.
I was about to say that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We also, as soon as the flights start, we'll jump on a plane and come there. And certainly,
You're welcome. Actually, I was having this question from
one of the things which would drastically change in the global soccer situation would be that this time when the World Cup comes to Qatar, the largest audience would come from India. While we are not a soccer nation, but you will see, if it comes closer to our country, then it is all going to be Indians. And more, not only Indians would come there, but a lot of Indian sponsors would go there because they go wherever the audience goes, right? So a lot of, I personally feel that there's a lot of bilateral trade which would emerge between next 2 years between India and Qatar. It's always been a great trade partner, but it will become even more bigger relationship to emerge in times to come.
Definitely. And if anybody has any questions or would like to reach out to me, I have a social handle on Instagram called Layla Al-Dorani, which is my name. So feel free to message me as you like. It's a public handle.
Thank you very much. I know it's Eid and Eid Mubarak to all of us. And thank you for taking time out. I know it's very special to have a session like this with you. Stay safe, and we'll speak soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Thanks, Hesham. Thanks, Layla.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.